By lowering skill duration as much as possible, Earthquake's aftershock becomes almost instant, and with time of need healing every 0.06 seconds, this build can continuously spam skills using HP instead of mana. And the most important part of this build is the passive tree setup. Most of the core power comes from the tree itself, which means you can start playing it on a very low budget and continue scaling it much further later on as you invest more currency into the build. The first thing we need to talk about is how Earthquake actually works with skill duration. Normally, the aftershock has a 4 seconds delay before it explodes, but once you have reduced duration, the explosion will happen faster. The class that can scale reduced duration the best is Titan, mainly because of the hulking form node, which grants 50% increased effect of small passive skills. This massively boosts the value of all the reduced duration nodes on the passive tree. With the current version of the passive tree, we can reach up to 92% reduced duration, allowing Earthquake's aftershock to become nearly instant much more easily. Another huge benefit of stacking reduced duration is how it affects time of need. The while active life recovery effect begins triggering much faster as the duration gets lower. With compressed duration support, the duration between blessings drops to around 0.51 seconds, that's enough to play this build. But if you can afford to use Palm of the Dreamer with 10% reduced skill effect duration mod, it can go all the way down to just 0.06 seconds. That is very insane. At that point, the healing becomes so absurdly fast that you can continuously spam skills using Blood Magic node, which converts mana costs into life costs, without running into sustain issues, because the life recovery easily keeps up with the HP being spent. In addition, Titan also has access to Ancestral Empowerment node, which causes every second slam skill you use yourself to become ancestrally boosted. An ancestrally boosted slam gains 30% more damage and 25% increased area of effect. This interaction becomes even stronger when combined with Fist of War 3, which doubles the effect of ancestral boost on supported skills, making Earthquake hit significantly harder while also covering a much larger area. For defenses, the build mainly focuses on high armor gear, maximum life, and capped resistances. If you have a bit more budget to invest, I highly recommend using the Amadamu Undrying Hate Jewel, which grants the Sacrifice of Flesh passive. This effect prevents 20% of life loss from hits initially, then spreads 150% of that prevented damage over 4 seconds instead. Because this build recovers life so aggressively, the delayed damage becomes much easier to sustain, making the build feel more tanky during mapping and boss fights. The final item I want to recommend is the Vertex. Its modifier, Equipment has no attribute requirements, works incredibly well with the Giant's Blood passive node, which allows you to wield two-handed axes, maces, and swords in one hand, but triples the attribute requirements of martial weapons. By using the Vertex, we can equip powerful two-handed maces without worrying about the massive attribute requirements at all. And if you have a higher budget, you can also look for a +2 to +4 level of all skills corruption to push the build's damage even further. I've tried playing mace builds multiple times before, but I could never fully enjoy them because the animations always felt way too slow and clunky. But after giving this build a chance, I ended up liking it a lot more than I expected. The instant aftershocks and non-stop gameplay honestly feel like what mace builds should have been from the beginning, instead of being overly slow and dragged out. Hopefully in the future we'll get even more interesting mace builds like this, because this is probably the most fun I've had playing maces in this game so far. Anyway, that's pretty much the build. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe for more builds. I'll see you guys in the next one.